All right, y'all. Welcome back and happy Tuesday. Of course, we're going to be talking about SEC Media Days. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I have a couple of quick notes that we need to get to first. Let's talk about Trey Smith being the highest paid guard in NFL history. This is huge for several reasons. Number one, we talked about this previously. We said that this would happen, and of course, it actually did. $94 million, $70 million fully guaranteed. And how this is going to help Tennessee moving forward is we're going to be able to land more good offensive linemen, whether that's guards, centers, or even tackles, because he played tackle at Tennessee, even though it wasn't with this staff. Kids don't too much care about that. Like we've seen programs like LSU. I mean, they've had great NFL draft classes with previous staffs, not so much with Brian Kelly, but kids are still going there based off of those previous years. This could help Tennessee out with players like Darius Gray, who does play at guard. So this is huge for us, needless to say. And let's also talk about this. This is something that we will be breaking down later on our Patreon, patreon.com/Bluechip Breakdown. These are the top 10 highest paid rosters in college football for 2025. Y'all can't really see Tennessee and Auburn because I'm blocking it, but Tennessee's sitting at number 9 and Auburn is at number 10. We also told you that Tennessee's probably like top 10 when it comes to this stuff. But again, we're going to go further into like details and breaking down what does this mean for our team and where were we at previously and all of that good stuff. But y'all can see that Texas is actually number 1 on this list, and that actually led to Tyler Atkinson, who I think is really the number 1 overall player in the 2026 class, choosing Texas over Georgia. Now, I'm not a Texas fan. Y'all should all know that. I just hate Georgia. So it wouldn't have mattered to me who he picked as long as it wasn't Georgia. Of course, wouldn't be happy if it was Alabama or Florida, but I would be happier with him going there over him going to UGA because he's one of those guys that would fit into their system very, very well. But I also think that he's going to fit into Texas's system very well. And it might kind of be like joke on us. This is what Pete said earlier, because we're going to have to play Texas, I think, for the next couple of seasons. And, you know, their defense is going to be great. But again, we're going to be breaking this thing down more later on with our Patreon, patreon.com/Bluechip Breakdown. Now, let me get into my overall thoughts with Tennessee's SEC Media Day. There is one thing that everyone spoke about, right? So we heard from Coach Heupel, we heard from Bryson Eason, Arion Carter, and also Kit. So everyone talked about, man, we're trying to get these young players ready, and we feel like they are ready. That is a very, very common theme. It was maybe like a couple of days ago. We just talked about some of the biggest impact freshmen for Tennessee, whether that's true freshmen or that's like redshirt guys. It sounds like, you know, that top 20, those guys will be asked to do some good things for us this year. Feels like they're up to that challenge. And this will also help us to land more players for maybe the 2026 class and also 2027. These kids want to come in, have the opportunity to, actually see the field. But that was my biggest overall takeaway. Now, with Coach Heupel, he did talk about the quarterback competition. And he said, listen, this is an open competition. I think it's between him and probably Merck. But one of the things that he brought up that we've heard him talk about previously is that Joey's got to work on some of his like fundamental stuff. I'm happy to hear Coach Heupel saying that. This is kind of a positive thing, maybe kind of negative, just based off of how you view it if you are a Tennessee fan. Number one, in watching more and more of Joey's film, he is very inconsistent with his fundamentals. So he'll throw like flat-footed or he'll throw off of his back foot. If there's pressure in his face, this is probably like the absolute worst thing. He almost kind of like throws a ball up into coverage blindly. The crazy thing, though, y'all, is that he's very accurate in that like last situation, which is, kind of weird. But if he gets out of some of that, because also I've noticed that he's not very consistent on some of those like easy passes. Feels like he does maybe better with, some of those more difficult ones. But like with the like routine stuff, he's not always spot on. But that is just based off of his like lack of fundamentals. I think that this staff, Coach Heupel and Coach Halsley do a brilliant job of our quarterbacks having consistent fundamentals. All of our guys, I mean, they're boom, boom, boom. Like everything is pretty much perfect. So I think that they can get him out of some of those bad habits. Obviously this is on short notice. So how quickly can they do it? Will he be ready by game 1? Obviously he's going to get better over the course of the year. If we can just kind of skate by and he manages the first couple of games, obviously, that second one, don't too much. I feel like Tennessee's going to be able to blow that team out. But versus Syracuse, if he can limit turnovers, if he does get the start, then in week 3, is he ready in a really big situation where we're playing at home? You got to watch out for it. So I would kind of go back with some of my grades, and I would say that Joey Aguilar might have like the lowest floor and maybe even the highest ceiling too, because if this staff can clean up about 20% of the fundamental stuff that I've seen on film previously with Joey, y'all, he's going to be really freaking good because he's already, I think, very, very good. with that lack of those funds, but just getting that little bit fixed is huge, which I think he's probably already at that point. So it could be, really, really bad as far as the turnovers, but it could also be really good as far as, man, this guy just looks totally different in a very, very positive way for our Tennessee Volunteers moving forward. Now, the next thing that I would like to do, y'all, is listen to Coach Heupel with the SEC Network panel and just break down some of his thoughts. We'll listen to that whole thing. We're not going to listen to every single thing that everyone says because that'll take forever, but I do want for y'all to hear some of the, just what he had to say here. So let's go on ahead and jump into that.
A few minutes with us. It's good to have you over here. Look, the room's still buzzing. Wait, there's a three-man quarterback competition going into the fall for a Josh Heupel coach team?
Yeah. We got open competition.
Is this something that most coaches, I would say, this is not an ideal scenario, but how do you approach it?
Well, I think there's times in the evolution of your program where you do want that competition. I think that makes everybody better and stronger. And ultimately, we don't believe that the strength of any one position group can just be one guy. I think that's important at the quarterback position, too. Through my career, you're going to have a guy go down at some point, and you better have the next guy ready to step up and go compete and win a game or win a bunch of games. And for us, it's unique in the time that we've lost one and gained one. It's not something that we haven't been through before. Great, competition at the quarterback position. You look at how Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton handled that situation a few years ago. True competition, fierce, right? But they helped each other in the meeting room. They helped each other out on the practice field. Ultimately, they're great friends. They made us a better football team. They're both in the NFL. I expect all of our guys to handle that the same way as we go through that. And that's how they've handled it this summer and certainly through the training camp and the season.
All right, so I think that those are excellent points. Yes, Tennessee's offense felt like it was better whenever we had kind of like a quarterback competition, guys that were close. Now, with Joey coming in, he's still new to this team. Sounds like he's pretty much acclimated. He's part of the team. He's out hanging out with all the players and stuff like that. That was definitely necessary. That's something that I worried about more than him picking up Tennessee's playbook and things like that. But sounds like he's probably going to fit in from that standpoint. But does he mesh well with the other quarterbacks in that room? We talked about Merck feeling maybe kind of slighted that everyone's just picking Joey to be that starter. So that could maybe create some sort of a rift. I don't know that for a fact by any means. So don't take me saying that like I know. It's just me purely, speculating on this situation. But yeah, Tennessee might be better suited when something like this happens. I actually feel like typically whenever you don't have a set guy coming into a season, whenever you have competition, that typically does make you better as long as the team isn't leaning more towards one other quarterback, over the other. You know what I'm saying? Like that could definitely split up the locker room, and we don't want to see that.
So there's no doubt you guys are put in a tough position, I would say. Not insurmountable, obviously.
Yeah, different than what you planned on.
The way college football is, those things happen.
Let me also pause it really, really quickly just to say that Coach Heupel did a really good job of speaking to the high school players and stuff. He always brings up, man, we've got these players that went on to the NFL, so on and so forth. He actually shouted out the whole state of Georgia. He said, yeah, this is a place that we come and get players all the time. So that's big. The coaches can never turn that off. So this just kind of goes to show how good Coach Heupel is with what he does.
You handled it remarkably, however. My question is, as far as your non-negotiables from a quarterback, you're obviously going to have a competition from these three guys. I know there's probably not a deadline where you want to decide. If there is, please tell us.
Yeah.
But what are the things that you say, okay, these are the top three things that I'm looking for from this quarterback in order for him to be the starter for the Tennessee Volunteers?
Yeah, through a situation like this, I think, a head coach, your coaching staff can gain a lot of trust in the words that you talk about inside your team room a lot, meaning that there is a competition and somebody's got to go earn it. And I think it's important for the quarterback on your football team to earn that through, my coaching career, my playing career. It matters to your offensive players, but your defensive guys, that's the guy and they trust in him. And it's going to pay dividends throughout the course of the season. So that's the reason we handle it the way that we do. We don't have a set timeline. Somebody's got to go take it, learn it, earn it, and take a job. And we'll practice in a way where they get a chance to truly compete for it. And but I think you got to have complete control and command of what we're doing offensively. You have the ball in your hands on every play. You have to be able to take care of it. And being the smart smart player in the scope of what we do. And that can be the tempo, it can be RPO game, it can be run checks, loaded box pass checks, whatever it might be. You got to have great command of what we're doing. And once you have that, then the non-traits that you're going to see on the field, the leadership, the connection with your teammates, the trust that you've gained from them, all of those go into a part of how we become the best team that we can be when we get to kickoff.
So he talked about taking care of the football. He's talking to all of his quarterbacks, but I think that really he's talking to Joey. He also says you have to be smart. This is something that we talk a lot about with Joey Aguilar watching his film. And I'm not taking a shot at him. I'm just keeping it real. Some of the passes that he would throw, it was like just stupid. Like it wasn't even a smart, like why would you even throw that? Sometimes, you know, they were able to hit on those passes. Other times it was interceptions. So this just lets us know that obviously Coach Heupel gets that part of it, and he's going to hone those points home. One of my other questions is going to be, how much does this take away, kind of like who Joey is? You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of, he's that gunslinger. Maybe he can make some magic happen. But you really, I think Tennessee needs for him to be more of like a game manager, and I think that that's kind of what Coach Hype's speaking to.
Yeah, Joey, not your starter just yet, but one of the things that he will have to go through, you did an amazing job sort of laying out for me in one of the games that we had with you, and this goes back to the beginning of what you talked about, a quarterback sort of being your guy. I tried to explain it to these men before. The details that go into the tempo aspect of your offense, alignment, spots on the field, who to give the football to.
I was going to take a crack at Dusty being a defensive guy, you know what I mean? But I stopped.
No, go ahead.
I stopped.
Josh, go ahead.
Bad for TV. Bad for TV.
So I think that the guy who Heupel's talking to, Dusty, I think that he either played with Coach Heupel at OU or something. But I know that for sure, like he's part of that program. So whether they played on the same team or if they coached together or something, but that's why they're kind of going back and forth.
Hardest people on the football field. You know that.
I actually believe that about you.
I appreciate that. Surely not him. Some other guys maybe, but not him. Can you just take us a little step further, a peek inside to how different it is for a quarterback to learn those type of details in your offense as opposed to maybe a lot of other offenses that are out there?
Yeah, we got two-prong checks, play to play, right? You got run to pass, pass to run. You got run checks where it's just, run one direction or style to another. Then you have the tempo. You got the RPO game, right? All the protections that you got to master, and how much you trust your quarterback in some of those protection situations is a part of the nuances of you have a framework of how you want to play as an offense, but then how do you put your guys in the best position to be successful? I think the great thing about the quarterback position is that we've had a lot of guys that have played at an elite level, and they all get to paint it a little bit different in who they are. And that's the artistry of playing that position and playing high-level offensive football. So I'm excited about it. It's a unique timeline as far as when things happen, but through any adversity, you also have great opportunity, and I'm looking for it. I think our football team has handled it extremely well, I'm looking forward to going and competing with these guys.
So, number one, he talks about, it's pretty much two different checks for our offense. So it could either be, a run check or a pass check. And you've got that play is already built into the offensive scheme. This just kind of goes back to what I was saying. Everything is kind of like in twos for this offense. It's not overly complicated. That should help Joey Aguilar to learn it. It should help the younger guys also be able to master what we're doing. But then he also talks about how, the quarterback, how they operate, and, maybe like how the whole offense looks can be different season to season. We've talked a whole lot with that whole topic. And some people would say, well, our previous two quarterbacks couldn't process very well. But like I just said, the processing part, it's really not that difficult. If you play if you play football really up to maybe like an 8th grade level, maybe high school level with some schools, you should understand some of it. It's like basic common sense football stuff. It's not difficult. That's one of the secrets to this offense. But wanted to make sure that I stopped it and talked about that.
Talked about that track record you've had with quarterbacks as a coordinator, as a head coach. One thing I liked about what you said at the podium, reminding everybody you're a physical, run the football team. You reminded everyone averaging over 200 yards a game every year you've been at Tennessee. You lose Dylan Sampson. You lose some key offensive linemen. Talk to us about
And so also, yes, Coach Heupel, that was one of the first things that he talked about, not in this segment, but whenever he first came up to speak to everybody. He talked about, man, Tennessee's going to play great defense and we're going to run the football. You have to be able to do those two things like we always talk about to be on a championship level. That also goes back to my point that, whoever the quarterback is this year can be more of that game manager if those two things are as good as they were last season. And I think most people feel that way. But he's also talking to guys like Savion Hyder and some of these other very highly rated running backs, because there is still this thought out there, which is crazy to me, that Tennessee is a run-first offense. A pass-first offense. We are a run-first offense. We ran the football about 60% of the time last year, and we've led the SEC, the most physical league in the entire world outside of the NFL, led it in rushing. So he keeps on talking about that, and I'm happy that these analysts brought that back up as well.
About where that's at, the overall running game from an offensive line and a running back room perspective.
Yeah, a year ago, I'm not sure anybody was expecting Dylan Sampson to be SEC Offensive Player of the Year. 2 years before that, no one was talking about Hendon Hooker being the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. That's what's great about this game, in college in particular, right? Because of the turnover. And for us, it does start with the run game. And we lost some really good players that had played a lot of football at a really high level up front. I love the length, athleticism that we have up there, the physicality. Now, our young guys, and this has been something we talked about a lot inside of our program, our young guys don't have time to be young. You can look at the schedule that we play early. You can look at being inside of this league. Our young guys got to grow early, and that's been something that's been, talked about for me, but applying pressure to our staff to get them ready. But in particular, the leadership inside of our position rooms, making sure they understand the standard and getting those guys ready to go play at a championship level.
Yeah, so a couple things there. Every single season, and this is talking season, something that Coach Heupel said several times that I absolutely love is that he's sick of the talking season. He's ready to go strap it up. I'm the same way. I'm tired of this. Like, I'm ready for a football season. I don't even too much care about any other news with any other sports. I'm locked into like football mode. But either way, saying all those things just to say, like, preseason at this point, everyone's going to say, well, we don't know about Tennessee. They're looking at all the flaws, and they say, well, they lost this player and they lost that player. But if you look at the history of this offensive system, one thing that's been consistent, like we just touched on, is running the damn football. We're going to be good at that, okay? So whoever gets the most carries is going to have the most yards. It's going to be on par, right? Like if somebody gets 258 carries, their numbers is going to look very similar to what Sampson's was last year. That's just doesn't too much matter. I actually think that the offensive line is better. It kind of sounds like Coach Heupel's hinting at that as well. And I also feel like as we get further into this, you will hear that some of the scheme stuff will change, and it's going to help our quarterbacks to get back to operating like what we saw in 2021 and 2022. So don't sleep on this team, man. We have a very light schedule, still very, very talented, and I think even more talented this season than we have been in any other season with Coach Heupel.
One of the coolest things I got to sort of watch unfold in the Southeastern Conference last year was my TV crew having you guys early, and you and Coach Halsey emphasizing what physicality was in the offseason. You wanted to get more tight ends involved. You wanted your offensive line to go a little bit further, be even different with that. And it was there. We saw it. It was omnipresent. So what was the focus this offseason about how you might want your offense to either act or be a little bit different?
I can't get into that. We have an opener.
I tried.
He used his thesaurus, by the way, to break down omnipresent.
We're staying at the omni. I just figured out.
He's been waiting for that one.
I talked about it earlier when I was up on stage, but, we never talked about it when we got here. And I think that was a part of getting our players to buy in and understanding that we're good enough to win now. And we've had to go through a lot of adversity and roster management issues. And man, like now you're able to have more depth as we're starting to come on the outside of that. That affords you to be different, and some things that historically we've had at times in my career, we have a chance to get back to. And Coach Halsey and our offensive staff have done a great job. I like some of the things that we've implemented.
All right, so y'all heard whenever that question was first asked by Q, Coach Hype says, listen, we can't talk too much about it. And I don't know if I should be talking too much about it either. It's just based off of some of the things that I've seen watching practice clips and things like that. But yeah, we are changing up some things. He also talks about, well, we've done some of this stuff previously, and I think that our staff has done a good job of implementing these new things. As we've talked about, since last season, really. And that's something else that I feel like everyone also touched on, is that there is such a bad taste in this team's mouth after that playoff loss. I mean, just going out there and getting drugged, they have a point to prove. There's a chip on their shoulder. And I think that the young guys that were up on campus, they got to go to that game and see it live. They feel that same way. So there's a very high, like, sense of urgency. But yes, this is what he's talking about, is some changes to our offensive scheme.
This off season, this game, it goes around in circles, right?
Yes.
We got here, defensive structures looked one way. They're completely different now. And
this goes back to one of the other points that we made a lot on this channel, is that, yes, defenses are playing our offense differently. So you just heard it from Coach Heupel. He's sitting here telling you, okay, like that, we're not just making that up, which is why Tennessee has had to make these changes to some of our scheme stuff, because there has to be some answers to that. We didn't have it previously. But that's the thing that gives me the most optimism for this team, is that, look, if you have, I think that coaching in some situations, it can trump talent. Not 100%. Now, we play in the most talented league, again, outside of the NFL, so you still need the talent, but we have the talent. We had it last season. Maybe not as talented as, like the top 2 or 3 rosters, but we were, in that same ballpark. If we had some of these changes that we're going to be implementing this year with that team, Tennessee might have won the national championship. And some of y'all will call me crazy, but football is built that way. It's chess, not checkers.
in some ways, we take that as a tip of the hat too. But like, we got to continue to evolve and grow. But it starts with your personnel. What can they do? How do you put them in a position to be successful?
So real quick, that last part, I probably didn't pause it at the right spot, but Coach Heupel goes on to say, yeah, defenses have changed their structure versus what we're doing, and we take that as a compliment, rightfully so. That whenever teams have to go to a totally different style of defense than what they normally play, that means that, whatever you were doing was working, and it can still work with that counter. So that's why, going back to my first point, the point that I just made, Tennessee's offense is going to be a lot better down the field now because we have those wrinkles. You know what I'm saying?
Beyonce's run here at Mercedes-Benz is finally over. So you guys are going to get it soon enough here. You mentioned the opener. Syracuse, good team. And I'm curious, as we sit 6.5 weeks out, how much are you taking a little peek at them? Are they very, very much on your radar at this point, or is it still, I'm looking at Tennessee?
We know what's coming when we look at our schedule, and it starts with Syracuse. For our staff, for our team, is being right where your feet are and controlling what you can control, and that's today. For us, there's still a lot of things that we got to figure out. Starts with quarterback and finding the best 11 and putting them in a position to be successful. And I think that's what's critical as you start your training camp and you go through this journey, and then you get into your true preparation for Syracuse. 7 to 10 days before you get ready to play.
So let me also just say this very, very quickly. For those of y'all that actually got to watch this live, they were talking about Tennessee's schedule prior to Coach Heupel speaking, and no one would – this is how SEC analysts do. They're not going to say, hey, this schedule looks light. Why? Because it's going to hurt, or it could hurt Tennessee or any other SEC program once we get to the point where they're picking playoff teams and all of that, with the overall rankings. But make no mistake about it, this schedule is extremely manageable. There's really only 3 games that I'm looking at. Well, maybe 4, because Oklahoma, that one could also be tough. But I think outside of that, we should be able to win every other game. So if we can win all of those games, if we can maybe only lose 2 of the bigger ones, then, man, Tennessee should make it to the college football playoffs. And I think that that's very, very possible.
To rehash what happened in the springtime, but I am curious, the message that sent to that locker room, what was that message you felt that team received when you had to make a tough decision that you made?
Well, our football team, they cared about Nico, and Nico's going to be a great player. He's going to have a great career, and I love Nico. I think, it's hard for your players.
Real quick, this is how we should all, at least for me, this is how I like to handle things. Whenever players leave us, there's no need to throw shade at them. Why? Because there's going to be more players that we want to land, and they see that type of stuff. So Coach Heupel is doing a really, really good job here, and I think he's being honest. And it's something that we've also talked about. Whenever Nico left, I don't know if that was really Coach Heupel that made that call. It could have been some of the donors that were really paying Nico's salary. They might have said, hey, he's not doing this and that, and I'm not paying him no more. He's got to go. So, yes, I think that Coach Heupel is still close with Nico. For some of y'all that most of y'all probably aren't still following Nico on social media, but I still have him on there. I'm not going to stop following him. But, he posts on his IG Tennessee stuff like daily. So I think that it wasn't really on Nico. I know that Nico's gone and all that, but I just wanted to get those thoughts out. There's no need for us to just keep on bashing Nico, It's not going to help anything. It's, maybe makes you feel better, but in the long run, it doesn't help out anything.
In that moment, but I think in leadership of any kind, having clear, consistent, transparent communication, and also timely in that allows your people to handle it the best that you can. It's quarterback, it's unique in some ways, but man, you got to have a next man up mentality. It's going to happen for every team across college football throughout the landscape of the season, and quarterback's no different in that way. And our guys have handled the change, transition, whatever you want to call it, in a really positive way. It's an outside noise. Try not to pay too much attention to it. Certainly our players hear that. Expectations from outside people may have changed after that moment. They haven't changed inside the locker room. And getting ourselves ready to go play at a championship level is the journey that we've been on, and what we're going to keep working towards.
Yeah, so that's going to do it. But you love to hear that, and I think that it is true. It's something that I've also heard. There's still a championship mindset with this team, and I think that everyone kind of like has that chip on their shoulder, which is what you want heading into a season. We've talked about this too. That feel like, man, being kind of like that underdog role, it kind of tends to be a positive thing for Tennessee's football team. So hopefully things will play out that way. But that is going to do it. Y'all, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave your thoughts down in that comment section, and we'll be seeing y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace. Thanks for watching. And please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.